Have you ever wondered what happens when a mother abandons her twins, only for a miracle to unfold years later? The morning was bright and soft, like fresh laundry, and Kola was trying to sweep the living room with one hand while answering a customer's call on speakerphone. The twins were running up and down in their matching pajamas, shouting, "Goal! Goal!" and using a throw pillow as a football. Then the knock came. Kola opened the door and there she was, Rachel, wearing a sky blue gown, a leather bag in one hand, and her hospital ID card still swinging gently from her neck. Her hair was packed in a clean bun and her eyes held something strong. "I have thought about it," she said. Kola's heart jumped. "And I have decided. I'm moving in," the boy screamed. "Mommy Rachel is moving in. Mommy Rachel is moving in." They ran to hug her legs as if they had just won the lottery. Kola was too stunned to talk. He stepped aside slowly, and Rachel walked in. For a moment, they both just looked at each other across the now clean room. There was no need to say anything else. The silence said it all. Hold on, could this be the start of something extraordinary? That night, Kola lay on one side of the mattress staring at the ceiling. Rachel was in the other room settling in. He texted her, "Are you still awake?" She replied, "Yes." Then silence. They both stared at their screens, not knowing what next to type. A few months passed. Life felt like a rhythm now. The twins were stronger, healthier, and more energetic than ever. They no longer needed medication every hour or breathing machines. They ate solid food, ran around the house, and made Rachel's life dramatic. Kola and Rachel agreed it was time to enroll them in school. A new school year was starting, and it was time they mingled with other children. But the boys came home every day complaining. "Daddy, our teacher doesn't like us. Mommy Rachel, the other children can write fast, we can't." It broke Rachel's heart. They had lost so many years of normal childhood because of their sickness. So, one evening, she told Kola, "Let's homeschool them just for a while. Let them catch up." By the weekend, they hired 2 lesson teachers. Rachel bought more textbooks, writing pads, and colorful charts. The house turned into a mini primary school. But there was one thing no teacher could teach those boys to forget: football. Every evening, John and Jude would sneak out to the open football pitch at the primary school nearby. They thought Rachel didn't know, and truly, she didn't until one Saturday. Rachel was supposed to work the evening shift, but changed her mind to make vegetable soup. She told the boys, "I'm going to the market. I'll be back soon." As soon as she stepped out, the boys brought out their matching jerseys. The one with strong boys, boldly printed in front, wore their sneakers, carried their small football, and tiptoed out like trained agents. 45 minutes later, Rachel came back with a black nylon of tomatoes and pepper. The house was too quiet. She dropped the nylon, called out, "John, Jude." No answer. She panicked, checked the toilet, under the bed, behind the curtains. Nothing. She called Kola. "Hello, Kola. The boys are missing." Kola left everything and rushed home like thunder in human form. Both of them searched up and down the compound, shouting the boys' names until a neighbor, Madam Kate, stepped out with chewing stick in her mouth and said casually, "They're at the fieldo." Every evening like this, they used the place to train. Even yesterday they scored like 5 goals. Rachel and Kola screamed in shock and they ran to the field and there they were, John and Jude flying across the sand like eagles, dribbling like they were born with ball in their blood, falling and laughing and kicking like they were playing World Cup finals. Rachel froze, but Kola placed his hands on his head like someone just lost a contract. "My God, my children with their chewing stick legs. This children will not kill me. Oh, Rachel, look at them. See how they are falling like firewood. They will crack their bones." Rachel laughed softly. "They're fine. Kola, they look happy." "Happy?" "Rachel, see John. Is that not his leg folding like boiled okra? I don't want to hear storyo." Before she could hold him back, Kola ran onto the field and started dragging them out like market chickens. "Let's go home. This madness must stop. You think you're Ronaldo? With which leg? With these chewing stick legs, the boys cried. But Daddy, we scored 6 goals already. You will score injury next time. That's what you will score. But Daddy, we were winning. Winning what? Do you want to die on the field? At home, Cola stood them in front of the wall like prisoners. Who told you to play football like that? Don't you know your health history? What if something happens to you? Daddy, we're fine, John said. Yes, Daddy, Jude added. We were just having fun. Fun? Fun that can land you in the hospital? The boys looked at Rachel, eyes pleading. Rachel stepped forward. Cola, maybe you're overreacting a bit. They're okay. Maybe we just supervise them more closely. I don't want my children endangering their lives for nonsense football. They are my children and my decision is final. Rachel's mouth shut. She turned slowly and walked into the room. Cola blinked, the door shut behind her. Inside, Rachel sat on the bed, her chest tight, her eyes burning. So, I'm not their mother, she thought. My opinions don't count because I didn't carry them in my womb. A tear dropped, then another. She pulled the pillow to her chest and whispered, God, why does this hurt so much? That night, Rachel locked herself in the room. She tried to distract herself with house chores, folding the boys' clothes, arranging textbooks, but her mind was far gone. She wasn't angry because of the shouting. She was hurt because for a split second it felt like everything she had done meant nothing. Meanwhile, Cola stood in the living room restless. He sat, stood, sat again, scratched his head, sighed like 10 tired men. Finally, he walked slowly to Rachel's door and knocked twice. Rachel? No response. Please, I know you're awake. Still no response. I'm sorry, Cola said, his voice trembling. I didn't mean those words. I was just scared. You know how long it took for these boys to even stand? And when I saw them flying around that field, falling anyhow. The door creaked open halfway. Rachel stood there, arms folded, readied. So you decided to drag them off the field like goats. Cola rubbed his neck. I panicked. They are fine, Cola. Let them live. Let them fly. He looked at her and his heart softened. You're right. And I'm sorry for saying you're not their mother. That was the biggest lie I've ever told. You are their mother in every way that matters. Rachel's lips trembled. She stepped aside to let him in. Inside the room, Cola sat on the edge of the bed. Rachel, there's something else I need to say. She blinked. What? I love you. Rachel gasped. I don't know when it started. Maybe somewhere between diaper changes and hospital visits. But I love you. Rachel's eyes widened. She walked toward him slowly. You do? Yes. She smiled through tears. Because I've been loving you. Quietly, Cola. I just didn't want to make things complicated. He held her hand gently. So, let's complicate it together. Just as they smiled at each other, a sudden giggle came from the door. They turned sharply. John and Jude were peeking from behind the curtain, holding each other's hands and mimicking their father in dramatic voices. I love you, Rachel. Rachel covered her face, laughing. Cola stood up. You were supposed to be sleeping. The boys laughed and ran away. We heard everything. The next day, Cola announced, let them play. From that day, football became a daily routine. Rachel would often walk down to the primary school pitch and cheer them from the sideline like a proud football scout. Go my Messi, she shouted. My Ronaldo Jr. Cola sometimes joined, dribbling small boys like a semi-retired coach. But anytime one of the boys fell, Cola would freeze, throw his hands on his head, and yell, Jesus, my son, their chewy stick legs. Oh, God, don't let them break. Rachel would laugh and say, calm down, coach. They're fine. One evening, Cola handed Rachel a paper bag. What's this? She asked. Open it. Inside was a lovely dress and a pair of shiny low heels. Rachel raised her eyebrow. "Hope it's not burial you're inviting me to." Cola chuckled. "Get dressed. We're going out." He took her to a fancy restaurant in town. The minute Rachel saw the menu, her jaw dropped. 9,000 naira for goat meat pepper soup. Is the goat wearing gold tooth? Cola laughed nervously. Just order anything. It's my treat. Rachel leaned closer. This one plate can cook 3 pots of soup in our house. Let's go. Before Cola could blink, she had called the waiter to cancel the order. They drove to their favorite local joint where they devoured umla widu and jabijari like royalty for 5,000 naira. Then they walked to their regular suya spot laughing over cold drinks. Rachel wiped her mouth. Best date ever. Cola cleared his throat and suddenly went down on one knee. Rachel froze. Cola. He brought out a small box. This is what the dress and fancy dinner was for. Rachel covered her mouth. Yes, I was planning to propose in that shiny restaurant, but you carried me away before I could kneel. Rachel laughed and cried all at once. You want to marry me near pepper and onions? Anywhere you are is perfect, Cola said. Rachel nodded, tears rolling. Yes, 100 times. Yes. And beside the suya man, who was still fanning meat, Cola and Rachel sealed a love that had already saved 2 small lives and would soon change theirs forever. A few weeks after Cola proposed to Rachel, they got married. It was a simple church wedding with only a few people in attendance. Mama Faye, a few of Rachel's colleagues from the hospital, and 1 or 2 neighbors. No canopy, no asibi, no choir singing soprano like it was a concert. Just love, pure love and joy. The pastor joined them in holy matrimony in less than 30 minutes. And before you could say rice and stew, they were outside taking pictures with a phone that'd crack on the screen. When they got home, they cooked 10 cups of rice and shared it to the guests. The jollof was smoky. The meat was soft. Everybody went home happy. The wedding was small yet but drama. It was not small. 2 days before the wedding, Jude and John nearly broke the house with argument. John wanted black suit. Jude shouted that blue would make them look like champions. They dragged the matter for hours like old women in a pepper market. Daddy will choose my color. John shouted. Lie. Daddy likes me more. Jude shouted back. Even Rachel had to intervene. You people are not the ones getting married, she warned. When Cola finally had enough, he raised his voice. Nobody is wearing black or blue. It is my wedding. We are wearing white suit. If you like when you marry, wear yellow. Wear cockroach brown. Even wear wrapper. I don't care. Rachel fell on the bed laughing. Cockroach brown? When the wedding day came, everything was perfect. No crowd, no canopy, just joy. 2 weeks later, it happened. There was a friendly community football match between their area and the next street. Cola agreed to let the boys play after Rachel begged and swore she'd carry the twins on her head if anything happened. Rachel dressed them in their strong boys' jersey. They tied their shoelaces like professionals and ran to the field like many Ronaldos. From kickoff, the twins transformed. Jude was dribbling like he had magnets on his feet. John was scoring like he had contract with Barcelona. Before halftime, it was already 3-0. By full-time, 5-0. The entire field was shouting, "Who born these children?" That's when Mr. Michael walked in. He wore sharp glasses, held a brown folder, and was flanked by 2 men in black suits. Scout vibes. Money vibes. He waited until the game ended, then walked up to Rachel and Cola. I haven't seen raw talent like this in years, he said, adjusting his glasses. I want to recruit your sons into a junior football academy. They have something special. He handed Cola his complimentary card. Cola stared at the card like it was poison, then looked at Rachel, then at the boys who were now wiping sweat and doing victory dance. No, he said sharply. Rachel's smile vanished. What? I said no. My children are not going anywhere. The boys froze. Daddy, Jude whispered. Mr. Michael blinked. Sorry, sir. Cola raised his hand. I said no. I don't want anyone dragging them up and down in the name of football. Please carry your academy and go. The scout sighed and walked away, the two men behind him shaking their heads. That night was thunderous. Rachel banged the door after dinner. You embarrassed that man. Cola rubbed his forehead. Rachel, I'm scared. You saw what sickness did to them. What if they fall again? What if they break those small legs on the field? Rachel stood there breathing fast. They didn't just survive, Cola. They fought. We carried them on our backs, fed them, prayed, cried. Now they want to run and you want to clip their wings. Cola looked down. You think they'll forgive you for stopping their dream? He sat on the bed thinking deeply. Later that night, he took his phone and texted Rachel. Cola, are you awake? Rachel? Yes. Cola, you're right. Rachel, about what? Cola, everything. The next day, they called Mr. Michael and apologized. 3 days later, he returned with his briefcase, 2 assistants, and a whole presentation. The boys will attend weekend training, get professional coaching, and if they impress the academy heads, they'll travel abroad. Rachel's heart did a backflip. Cola held her hand under the table. Let's do this. John and Jude burst into their celebration song and danced around the parlor like comedians on Christmas Day. Their journey had just entered a new chapter. John and Jude resumed the football academy. First, it was just weekends, fun drills, light training, and small matches. But as time passed, things got more serious. It became 3 times a week. Cola had to drive them for hours each time, yawning, stretching his back, sometimes muttering, "This football, Seth, it was stressful." Fuel was expensive. The traffic was crazy. But every time the twins laced their boots and ran into the academy with excitement on their faces, it felt worth it. Rachel joined them on days she was off work, clutching bottles of water and snacks, cheering the boys like a full-time cheerleader. She literally held the family together for months, encouraging Cola every time he started grumbling at night. Don't give up. We didn't come this far to stop halfway, she would say, massaging his shoulders as he lay tired on the bed. Then after 2 long years, the big break came. One evening, Cola was outside rinsing the car when his phone rang. It was Mr. Michael. Hello, sir. I have fantastic news. His voice came excitedly. John and Jude have been selected for the National Junior Football Competition in Port Harcourt. Cola froze with the wet rag in his hand. His heart skipped. Port what? Port Harcourt, sir. Flight tickets already booked, hotel reservations made, all expenses covered for both boys and their parents. Cola didn't say a word for several seconds. He just stood still, staring at nothing. His eyes filled with tears. He rushed inside and shouted, "Rachel, Rachel, come, we are flying." The twins thought they had won a lottery. When Rachel heard the news, she screamed and grabbed the boys, twirling them in circles. They danced in the living room like crazy people. The neighbors came to knock. They didn't care. A few days later, they boarded a flight for the very first time in their lives and landed in Port Harcourt like VIPs. The hotel room had soft white bed sheets that hugged their skin. Food came like magic. 3 times a day. No need to hustle. No need to boil rice and fry stew. Rachel took a leave of absence from the hospital and called it family vacation. Every match day, she and Cola sat at the front row screaming like proud parents. Jude would wave when he saw them. John would flash his famous gap to smile. And when the twins scored goals and the crowd chanted their names, Cola would shake his head and say to the person beside him, "Doctor said they may never walk. Now see them flying." Rachel would nudge him with her elbow. "You've said that story 10 times today. Let me say it 100 times. Cola replied, laughing with his full chest. At the end of the competition, John and Jude were crowned Golden Boys, decorated with gold medals and praised by all. They returned to the hotel suite with joy bubbling in their hearts. That night, just as they were about to eat, Cola's phone rang again. It was Mr. Michael. "Cola," he said, "I have something big. My international partners would like to speak with you and your wife tomorrow." "What did you say?" Cola said, placing the phone on speaker. "Just dress well. You're going somewhere that smells like generational wealth." The next morning, a black luxury SUV pulled up at the hotel gates. The family was picked up and taken to a tall glass building. Inside the boardroom were Mr. Michael and three white men in suit and tie. After greeting them nervously, Mr. Michael smiled and said, "These men are international scouts for a junior football academy in the UK, and they want John and Jude." Rachel gasped. Cola blinked twice and held his chest. "Me?" "Yes, sir," one of the white men said in clean, sharp English. "We've been following your sons. They have extraordinary potential. We'd love to offer them a full junior scholarship, accommodation, training, and future signing rights. They will be trained for the Premier League." Cola stood up. "Sorry, please. Where is your toilet?" He went to the restroom 3 times during that meeting just to wash his face and whisper, "God, is this me?" When he returned, they signed the necessary paperwork. Rachel kept smiling as she held Cola's hand. They both knew this was it. Their sons were no longer the boys with weak lungs and chewing stick legs. They were stars heading for greatness. A few months after Cola and Rachel signed the deal that would change their lives forever, it finally happened. They boarded a plane to the United Kingdom. But not just any plane. This was a UK plane with cold AC, fancy seatbelts, and food Cola couldn't even pronounce. The Junior Football Academy didn't just take John and Jude. They flew their entire family out first class. They paid for flight, accommodation, food, and on top of that, they gave Cola and Rachel money. Not 10,000, not 50,000, not even 1 million, but plenty. The kind of money that made Cola sit still for 5 minutes in shock, blinking like a goat in traffic. Every time he opened the credit alert on his phone, he shouted, "Jesus," like someone who just saw a ghost. Rachel couldn't stop smiling. Her cheekbones had turned to concrete from how long she was grinning. Everything felt like a dream. Just a few years ago, John and Jude were lying in the hospital, plugged to machines, their lungs so fragile, doctors weren't sure they'd survive. And now, these same boys were flying their parents to the UK on football tickets. When they landed at Manchester Airport, the cold breeze nearly slapped Cola into another realm. UK. Rachel. "We are in the UK," he shouted, laughing and crying at the same time. A sleek black SUV was waiting for them. The driver wore gloves and a suit like in Hollywood films. He respectfully helped load their boxes into the boot. Rachel and Cola were dropped off at a lavish furnished suite while John and Jude were taken to the football academy to begin training with other juniors. The room had soft white bed sheets, bathrobes, and scented towels. Cola flung himself on the bed and screamed, "Jesus, these boys have taken us to London. Chewing stick legs have reached Manchester." He dropped to his knees, raised his 2 hands to heaven, and said, "God, I thank you. Poverty nearly removed my teeth. Thank you for remembering me. Thank you for sending this woman my way," he pointed to Rachel. "You see this woman? She is a good person. Thank you for standing by my boys," he said as tears streamed down his face. Rachel sat beside him, wiping her own quiet tears. "Cola, you deserve it. You fought so hard. Look at us now." That night, they laid on the bed like tourists who just entered heaven. They slept with the AC on, socks on their feet, and joy in their chest. Every morning, they explored the streets of Manchester hand in hand like newlyweds. They visited museums, walked past the stadiums, and ate food that had names Rachel couldn't pronounce. Cola ate one small sandwich that made his stomach begin to sound like a generator. He ran to the toilet 3 times in 1 hour. "Rachel, what kind of food is this? Is this sandwich or stomach poison?" Rachel laughed until she rolled off the bed. But despite the stomach upset, he still returned to the same cafe the next day. One more sandwich. I can't come to UK and not eat everything. Rachel shook her head and said, this enjoyment might finish you one day. For 3 solid months, they lived like royalty. No bills, no noise, no stress, just love, food, video calls, and joy. But soon, their vacation ended. It was time to return to Nigeria. The day they were leaving, Kola sat silently in the black SUV, holding Rachel's hand and looking out the window. I will miss these boys. Me too, Rachel said softly, blinking back tears. They dropped John and Jude at the academy, hugged them tightly, prayed over them, and promised to video call every single day. Back in Nigeria, Kola returned to his taxi work. Rachel resumed at the hospital, but their hearts were now permanently connected to Manchester. Every time the boys had a free hour, they called home. Their accents were even changing slightly. A few months later, John and Jude began touring Europe with their team for junior championships. Cole and Rachel would gather neighbors in their small living room, connect the match on cable, and everyone would scream whenever the boys appeared on screen. That's my son. See that number 7? That's Jude. My Jude. See John? He just dribbled 3 foreign boys. That one is my child. Rachel would nudge him, laughing hard. Calm down, Coach Kola. They watched every single match with tears of joy and bowls of popcorn. Every few months, Kola and Rachel flew to the UK to visit the twins. And when the boys were on break, they flew back home, bringing snacks, jerseys, and stories that made the whole compound jealous. And each time Kola stared at those boys, he would whisper to himself, God, thank you. These same boys, the doctor said, may never walk, are now running across countries. You are truly not a man. John and Jude became a national sensation. They trained relentlessly, earned top ranks in their academy, and before long, their names were whispered in elite football circles. Coaches called them the Miracle Twins. At just 16, 2 massive football clubs from Europe spotted their brilliance and offered them contracts into the adult league. It was every boy's dream, playing in world-renowned stadiums, facing off with football giants, and having their names chanted by crowds. From their small beginnings in that tiny living room in Lagos, the twins were now dominating international leagues. Each time they scored, commentators screamed their names. Fans held up banners with their faces, jersey numbers, and cheeky phrases like chewing stick legs. Think again. Rachel and Kola would sit in their lavish living room built by the boys with bowls of popcorn and juice, eyes wide with joy, waiting to see their sons on the screen. And each time the boys ran out of the tunnel onto the pitch, Kola would burst into tears, saying, those are my sons. My sons, the doctor said, may never walk. See them now flying like eagles. Rachel would just smile, lean closer, and whisper, God is faithful. The twins didn't forget where they came from. At 17, they gifted Rachel and Kola a mansion in Lekki, Lagos. Not just any mansion, this one had an elevator, a cinema room, a heated pool, and a gym Kola never entered. They bought their father a bulletproof Lexus Jeep, and their mother a wine-colored Mercedes-Benz that made even the hospital chief matron jealous. But the greatest gift was the modern maternity hospital they built in Rachel's name. The Strong Boys Memorial Women and Children's Hospital. Mommy, John had said, you've cared for too many people. Now let the people care for you. Rachel cried uncontrollably that day. Even the contractor teared up. Kola, ever the planner, helped the boys open investment portfolios, savings accounts, and trust funds. He told them, ball know they last forever. Plan well now. The boys listened. They trusted their father and their mother. Almost every month, Rachel and Kola flew to Europe like they were visiting Oshodi Market. They sat in VIP lounges, traveled in blacked-out SUVs, and signed autographs for fans who recognized them as the parents of the Miracle Twins. When a global sports news channel invited the twins for a full documentary and live interview, the world watched in awe. The boys narrated everything. How they were born premature, how their birth mother left, and how their father was broken until one kind-hearted nurse, Rachel, entered their lives. She's not just our nurse, Jude said into the mic, she's our mommy. She taught us how to crawl, how to walk, how to fight. We were the little grooms at her wedding to our dad. After the wedding, we cooked only 10 cups of rice. That's how small it was. Everyone in the studio laughed. John continued, if not for Daddy and Mommy Rachel, we won't be here. They gave us life again. Behind the camera, Cola and Rachel watched, holding hands. Rachel wept softly. These weren't just boys she raised. They were her sons. Her destiny, her testimony. Cola held her closer and whispered, God gave me twins, but he also gave me you. That night, their story went viral. TV channels, bloggers, newspapers, everyone was talking. From chewing stick legs to champions, meet the twins who shattered every limit. The nurse who became a mother. Rachel's story will break you. Abandoned as babies, now superstars. John and Jude's unbelievable journey. But as the world celebrated, someone else was burning inside. In a cramped, self-contained room across town, someone sat glued to her screen, eyes wide, lips trembling with disbelief. Her brows were furrowed, her hands shook. It was Rose, Cola's ex-wife, the biological mother of John and Jude. Her hair was rough, her face pale, her phone screen was cracked, but she could still see everything. Rachel and Cola smiling on TV. The mansion, the cars, the boys shining like stars. Her jaw tightened, her eyes narrowed, her heart ached, not with motherly love, but with jealousy, bitterness, and regret. She had abandoned them when they needed her most. And now the world was celebrating their new mother. She stalked them obsessively, watched every video, zoomed into every photo. She hadn't eaten all day. Her stomach growled, but her mind roared louder. It should have been me. That was supposed to be my life. She bit her nails, then her fingers, then clenched her fists in rage. And then she made a decision, a terrible one. She would do the unthinkable. She would come back, not for love, not for forgiveness, but to take what rightfully belongs to her, to possess her possession. One Tuesday morning, Rachel and Cola were having breakfast when they heard a knock on the door. The maid went to check who it was, then came back with a confused look and said, Olga, one woman is here. She said, she is the original madam, your real wife. She came with big bag. She said we should let her in. Cola froze. Rachel's teaspoon stopped midair. They turned slowly to face each other. No words needed. They both knew it was trouble. And that trouble came in the person of Rose. Cola stood up from the dining table and went outside. And there she was standing by the gate with a worn-out face and a giant bag, looking like someone who had just staggered out of a beer parlor. Like a drunkard who forgot his way home. What are you doing here, Rose? Cola asked sharply. How did you find this house? What gave you the audacity to come here? His voice rose with every word, but Rose wasn't moved. She dropped her bag with a loud thud and hissed. Cola, so you're enjoying our son's money alone, right? You think you can deny me my own share? You lie. I have come to stay to possession my possession. Cola laughed bitterly. To possess your madness, Rose. You abandoned us and followed a rich man for 17 years. You never called, never texted, never visited. Rose, for 17 years now. You want to reap where you did not sow? You lie, Rose. I don't know you. My sons cannot be your children. Their real, authentic, loyal, original mother is inside. Carry your rubbish bag on your head and return to the psychiatric hospital you escaped from, Cola said. But Rose didn't back down. She shouted back with bloodshot eyes, You lie, Cola. I go nowhere. You must acknowledge me as the real mother of my sons. I cannot allow a stranger to take my place. I carried them in my womb for 9 months. I must reap the fruit of my labor. You must acknowledge me. You must give me my own share. Cola didn't say another word. There was no point arguing with a woman who was one step away from madness. He turned calmly, walked back into the house, and picked up his phone. Within minutes, security had bundled Rose out of the compound and out of the estate like a stubborn goat. As they dragged her, Rose screamed and kicked, threatening, I will go to court. I will go to bloggers. I will reveal the whole truth. But Kola didn't flinch. He sat back down and continued eating his yam and egg as if nothing happened. Rachel felt bad, truly. She looked at Kola and opened her mouth to say something, maybe to beg on Rose's behalf. But when she saw the look on his face, she shut her mouth immediately. She didn't want to be the next stubborn goat thrown out. Rose kept her promise. She hired a lawyer and tried to sue, claiming relationship to the boys. But Kola's legal team finished the case before the judge even sat. The matter was dismissed like a joke. Next, Rose went to bloggers. She posted a video crying and ranting that she was the real mother of Jude and John. She claimed she never abandoned them, that Kola was the wicked one. She was sure her video would go viral and people would sympathize with her, but instead she got only a few thousand views and brutal comments that nearly sent her to her early grave. People dragged her left and right. Liar, fake mother, clout chaser. One commenter even called her a retired madwoman. Rose was humiliated. She cried for days. Her plans had failed again. One day she confronted her mother. You made me leave my family. You made me lose everything. Now everybody laughs at me and calls me awful names. I shouldn't have listened to you, Mommy. I shouldn't have left my husband, she said through tears. Her mother looked at her and scoffed. Did I force you to leave your husband? Did I force you to abandon your children? Don't put your frustrations on me. Ooh, your second husband. Was I also the reason he chased you out like goat and claimed custody of the child you had with him? Don't blame me for your misfortune. Face your life. Let me face mine, please, her mother replied. Rose broke down. She cried bitterly every day in her father's house. She had lost everything. Her first family, her second marriage, her child. Her second husband had thrown her out after a minor quarrel and called her a nagging wife. He took custody of their child. And now Rose had nothing. No husband, no children, no money, and no one to fight for her. Only shame and silence. Thank you for watching this story from Innocent Stories. What do you think of this story? If you were in Kola's shoes, would you ever forgive Rose? If you were Jude and John, would you ever forgive your biological mother? Let me know of your thoughts in the comments section below. And until I bring another intriguing story your way again, bye for now from Innocent Stories.